Fasten your seatbelt. I am taking you for the ride of your life. I'm going to show you what this car can really do. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Hang on.
Okay.
Here we go.
Hold on to your butts.
Forget him, kid.
To infinity and beyond!
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor. It's not a tumor at all.
So you can go ahead and ask me what you're going to ask me, and my natural response could be to get offended.
Well, fine, let's talk about it.
Any thoughts of your own on this matter? Or is that your thing? You come into a bar, you read some obscure passage, and then pretend you pawn it off as your own idea just to impress some girls?
Just another American who saw too many movies as a child.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
All right.
You're listening to the 30-something movie podcast. One movie each week, 30 years in the making. Hey, that's right. It's a 30-something movie podcast. I am your host, John, and I have with me, as usual, sometimes we don't have everybody with us together, but I've got with me this evening, Dennis, Bo. Why am I calling you guys by your first names? I don't even know who you are. I still call my boss Mister. I've worked for him for 7.5 years, but I walk in here all of a sudden, you're a total stranger, and I'm calling you Bo, and I'm calling you Dennis like we're in some kind of AA meeting. I don't want to be your buddy. Dennis.
Hi, John.
I just want some breakfast.
Breakfast.
Call me Rick.
There you go. I don't want to be your buddy, Rick. I just want some breakfast.
It's like we're in some kind of AA meeting.
Have you ever heard the expression, the customer is always right?
Yeah.
So I was going to mention this later, but I do want to point out, and it had been a little while since I have seen this movie. I've seen this movie twice before, so I'm already jumping ahead a little bit. The movie is Falling Down, by the way. We didn't mention that already. Falling Down from 1993. That's our movie for this episode. In that scene where he goes into the fast food place and is trying to order breakfast, and they're like, breakfast ended. We stopped serving breakfast at 11:30. And he looks, and it's like 11:32 or 11:33 or something like that. And I'm sitting there going, dude, like, first of all, that's really unrealistic. Any other place, breakfast is probably ending at 10:30 if you're lucky.
Right.
Second of all, 11:32. No, by the time it's 11:32, unless you woke up at 10 o'clock in the morning, 11:32 is lunchtime. That's already lunchtime.
Indeed.
You don't need to order what's it called? A womlet? Is that what he tries to order?
Whammy burger, I think it was. Yeah, but you know what? He was also walking out of that car for a while to get to that whammy burger place. So in his mind, he might have been on his way to get breakfast. So his mind might have been fixated on breakfast, and that's why he never got that breakfast yet.
Yeah, he's still wrong though.
And see, for lunch, he had lunch in the briefcase.
Yeah, I don't know. By 11:32, that's lunchtime. And in the real world, he would have been an hour late for breakfast, so doesn't even really make that much of a difference. But this is Falling Down. So we are the 30-something movie podcast. We spoil here, so if we start talking, we mention a movie that you don't want to hear anything about, maybe skip ahead 10 seconds or so just in case. Otherwise, we just kind of talk freely as we go here. Make sure you visit our website, 30podcast.com. You can leave ratings there, leave a voicemail, a review. You can become a co-executive producer via Patreon, where you get all kinds of bonus content there. We've got some really good episodes that we've done so far this year. We've done full episodes on Patreon for The Outsiders, favorite love songs of the 80s and 90s. Octopussy was the one for this month. And then, let's see, our short ones we've done, Mr. Mom, favorite movies of last year, Staying Alive, The Dead Zone. This month's are Superman 3 and Shazam, Fury of the Gods. So all kinds of great stuff. Next month on Patreon, we've got the Razzies of 93. So we'll do a whole little set of the worst movies according to the Razzie Awards. And then the shorts for next month are going to be Sleepaway Camp from 83 and Evil Dead Rise from this year. So all kinds of good stuff over there. So feel free to join us over there. Any level of support gets you those bonus episodes and helps keep everything running as smoothly as possible over here on the 30-something movie podcast. So yeah, I know Pat tonight had a music thing for his kids, so he may or may not be joining us a little bit later. I was going to ask him how things went, because I know he branched out and was a guest on another podcast. It sounds like they got 3 or 4 podcasts together, and we're talking about James Bond movies. So knowing Pat, that probably ended up being like a 5-hour episode.
At least.
At least 5 hours. And then recently, actually, they probably are both out by now. I was actually a guest on our buddies, the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast. They were doing a showdown between Lionel Richie and Billy Joel on who had the better album in, was it 83 or 84? 83. So I voted for Billy Joel, but
obviously.
yeah. But yeah, so all kinds of good stuff. Good stuff going on. All right, I think we're just going to jump on into this one. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about with Falling Down. There's a lot going on in this movie, and I'll say up front before we jump into all of the background information and all that other stuff. The first time I watched this movie I was in high school, and the second time I watched this movie was just a couple of years ago, and there was something very different about watching this at age 15 versus watching this at age 40. And especially given the things that were going on in the world the last time I watched this movie 2 years ago was a very different viewing experience. We'll put it that way.
Is the 2 years ago the last time you saw it?
Well, except for this week. Yeah.
You saw it this week too. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Did 2 years ago influence, were the goings on in the world what influenced you to watch a movie of this? Or was that just happenstance?
I was looking around for something to watch. I knew I had watched this one back in high school, and I think I was doing other things. I was working on something, and I was going to just put something on kind of in the background, and I was just searching around on, it was either like Tubi or Netflix or something, and came across Falling Down. I was like, oh, I remember watching that one. Let me throw this one on real quick. And then it quickly came back to me like, oh, yeah, this is the one where he goes roaming through all the different scenarios in Los Angeles. And in the actual real world, there are, riots going on and all kinds of racial injustice issues. And I'm sitting there watching this movie now going, wow, okay, this hits a little differently in the 2020s.
Mm-hmm.
No. But we will get into that. So, all right, our first segment here is what we like to call Trivia Pursuits. We're going to give you some background information on the movie. We're going to give you a little bit of trivia. We're going to give you a synopsis. We're going to give you the audio from the trailer. Then we're going to dive into our major moments. That is our kind of quick flyby of the plot of this movie. We'll break it down into kind of the major moments of the plot. And then after that, we think a little deeper. We go into our deep thoughts on this one. All right, so getting us started off here, this movie, as I said, is Falling Down. Came out on the 26th of February, 1993, rated R with a runtime of 1 hour, 53 minutes. Directed by Joel I Love to Ruin Batman Movies Schumacher, who died in 2020. He did Flatliners and The Lost Boys. Writers for this one were Ebby Rose Smith, who did The Big Easy and Turner and Hooch. Very different movies, Falling Down and Turner and Hooch.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's some range.
There is a dog in both.
That's some range. There is a dog in both, and cops. So
yeah,
and Breakfast to some degree. Producers for this one were Timothy Harris, Arnold Coppelson, who died in 2018, and Herschel Weingrod. Harris did Trading Places, Coppelson did Platoon, and Weingrod did My Stepmother is an Alien. James Newton Howard was the composer. He did Dave, The Fugitive, and The Sixth Sense. Cinematography was done by, I challenge anyone else to try to say this name correctly, so if I don't, apologies. I think it's Andrei Bardokoviak. Okay. Second time's the charm. I think that's it. He did Romeo Must Die and Speed. Editor was Paul Hirsch, who did Star Wars, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Mission Impossible. Budget for this one was $25 million. Box office was $96 million. Flickmetrics gives it a 68%, and CinemaScore gives it a B. Michael Douglas plays D-Fens, who I'm not sure anybody actually ever calls him by name in this movie, but in the credits they refer to him as D-Fens, which was his license plate number. Officially, I think his name is supposed to be William Foster.
Yeah.
So
they call him Bill a couple times.
Do they call him Bill? Okay. All right. I was trying to remember if they
I think the cops might call him Bill. I'm trying to remember now.
Yeah, it's weird because in credits he's just defense. But
yeah. And maybe they don't call him Bill to his face, but they reference him.
They might. His wife might say his name.
There it is.
Yeah. Let's see. Michael Douglas is in Wall Street and Traffic. Robert Duvall was Prendergast, Sergeant Prendergast. He was in The Apostle and The Godfather. Barbara Hershey played Beth. She was in Hannah and Her Sisters and Black Swan. Rachel Ticotin played Sandra. She was in Total Recall and Con Air. Tuesday Weld played Mrs. Prendergast. She was in Once Upon a Time in America and Thief. Frederick Forrest played the surplus store owner. He was in Apocalypse Now and The Conversation. And Lois Smith played William Foster's mother. She was in Minority Report and Lady Bird. All right. I have a couple of really quick trivia things here. Michael Douglas and actually his father, Kirk, have both said that Michael Douglas said this is his favorite performance of all the movies that he has been in. And his father, Kirk Douglas, said that this was his favorite performance of all of his son's movies.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you hear actors talk a lot about getting into the head space of a certain character, and you got to figure this was crazy to play. Like, this had to be just to get in the headspace of this guy had to be, for an actor, a cool challenge and a
there's a lot of space in that head to get into. Well, the other funny thing about that is he almost didn't take this part because he had just done a couple of movies back to back and kind of was going to take a break from acting to kind of spend time with family and just kind of rest for a little bit. And I guess Joel Schumacher is the one that convinced him. He's like, hey, I got the script. I want you to read it. He took a look at it and he's like, I don't know. I mean, this looks really great, but I'm really wanting to take a break. And I guess through the pleading of Joel Schumacher and the quality of the script he saw, he was like, okay, I'll come back and do this. And he's said in interviews he was glad he did because it's his favorite. During the filming of the movie, which took place in Linwood, California, the 92 Los Angeles riots erupted. So as the riots intensified on April 30th, filming had to be cut short for the day due to the disruption. To continue production, the film crew moved to Warner Brothers Studio in Burbank to shoot some additional footage. However, when the crew planned to resume filming on May 4th in Pasadena, they were initially denied permission, causing delays. Filmmakers acknowledged that the tense atmosphere of the riots had an impact on the final product of the movie. So, a little life interfering with art, maybe in that case, and imitating. And then finally, this was my favorite piece of trivia, just because I want to go back and look for it now because I don't know that I noticed it. To promote the release of the song Baby Got Back, Sir Mix-a-Lot's studio sent a giant 20-foot by 15-foot inflatable butt around the country in April of 1992. The same month, this film began shooting in Los Angeles, and the inflatable butt makes a cameo appearance during the phone booth scene.
Yeah, I meant to go back and look for it. I did not.
Yeah. So
kind of wish I had.
So I like big trivia, and I cannot lie. All right. The synopsis for this one, in the style of the late, great Don LaFontaine. In a world where the pressures of modern society are at an all-time high, one man will reach his breaking point. Michael Douglas stars as William Foster, a former defense industry engineer who is fed up with the frustrations of everyday life. When his car breaks down on a hot Los Angeles day, Foster begins a journey that will push him to the brink of madness. As he encounters a series of obstacles, from rude fast food employees to gang members on the street, Foster's anger and frustration boil over. With a relentless police officer hot on his trail and his sanity slipping away, Foster becomes a symbol of the growing tensions between ordinary people and the society that has left them feeling powerless. Will he find redemption, or will his rage consume him? Falling Down is a provocative and gripping drama that will leave you on the edge of your seat.
Bill Foster is an ordinary man.
Where you going?
Going home.
Not this way or not.
Why not?
Metro Rail Construction, that's why not.
Living in the everyday world.
I don't suppose you have a couple of bucks you can give me. It would really help me out. If you give me your address, I'll mail it back, honest.
A patient man.
Can I help you?
Yes, I'd like a ham and cheese omelet, wham fries.
I'm sorry.
We stopped serving breakfast at 11:30.
Who's running out of patience.
I get some change for the phone.
A peaceful man.
No change. I have to buy something.
Who's about to be pushed.
85 cents. 85 cents.
That doesn't give me enough money for the phone call.
Drink. 85 cents. You pay or go.
A little too far.
I stay.
You mean you stole your baseball bat, but he paid for the soda?
Just standing up for my rights. As a consumer.
Oh, this guy's discriminating.
What kind of vigilante are you? I am just trying to get home to my little girl's birthday.
Give us your briefcase.
If everybody will stay out of my way.
Here, you want my briefcase? Here's my briefcase! There's the briefcase, huh? Wait a minute, wait.
Then nobody will get hurt.
Warner Brothers presents
Say, would you get off my golf course? I am.
the story of an everyday guy who refused
Fine! Baby, whoa.
to take it one more day.
Sir, we got a nutcase with a bag full of guns. He's in Hollywood right now, and he's heading west.
I don't know if you've noticed or not, but there's other people waiting to use the phone here.
Now, if you go up against this guy, be careful.
I think it's out of order.
Somebody in a white shirt and tie gunned down a phone booth 3 blocks from the Whammy Burger.
Michael Douglas.
In America, we have the freedom of speech. Come on, if I want to be in a parking lot, I'll buy a ticket. The right to disagree.
Robert Duvall.
I know who this guy is.
In a Joel Schumacher film.
What are you doing to the street?
We're fixing it. What the hell does it look like?
See, I don't think anything's wrong with the street. I think you're just trying to justify your inflated budgets.
Well, I guess so.
I'll give you something to fix.
What are you... Hey, Charlie!
Falling down.
Let's call it a day.
Come on. I'm the bad guy?
A tale of urban reality.
I like that tagline.
A tale
A
of
tale
urban
of
reality.
urban reality.
Yeah. All right, let me walk you through the major moments here real fast. We'll do this real fast because we got a lot of stuff to talk about here. So let me do the major moments. I'll do a quick flyby on this one. All right. So major moment number one is I'm going to quote a song by the late, great Jerry Jeff Walker. If I can just get off this L.A. freeway without getting killed or caught. He is stuck in traffic, and we've all been stuck in traffic at one point or another, and it is, but at this early stage, we start to see his frustration just sitting there and waiting, and as we find out as the film progresses on, we find out he's trying to get to, it's his daughter's birthday, and he wants to get home for his daughter's birthday. As things go on, we learn that he's not really supposed to be going to his daughter's birthday. He's got a restraining order against him, and his ex-wife does not want him there. And we'll find out a little bit later on why, but that's the beginning. He just abandons his car, as he will be referred to in the credits. His license plate is D-Fens, I think it's D-F-E-N-S. And I think we learned through little bits and pieces that he was, and I think it mentioned in some of the synopsis stuff that he's a former defense industry engineer. I was reading one thing that said he was a former weapons engineer, a former defense contract employee, things like that. And so, we don't get too many details about what it was that he did, but it maybe explains why he knows his way around some weapons. So one of the first scenes is he needs to make a phone call, but he does not have the change to make a phone call, goes into the convenience store, needs to get some change, but the guy will not give him change unless he makes a purchase, wants to go buy a Coke. He's assuming the Coke will be 50 cents. The Coke is 85 cents. Then a little bit of trashing of the store ensues because he feels slighted by having to pay 85 cents for a Coke, whereas I'm sitting there going, 85 cents for a Coke? Sounds great. What a steal. Then he starts listing off prices for the other things in the convenience store. I'm like, whoa. What, $1.29? Like a pack of gum is not even $1.29 anymore.
I can eat more than $1.29 worth of toast.
So he does trash the store. He does take his baseball bat, but he does trash up the store a bit. And there's a lot, well, I won't go into it now because we'll talk into it when we get to our deeper thoughts, but a lot of his commentary and a lot of his ranting that he does kind of once he gets in these scenarios where he gets upset about something. We'll talk about those a little bit later when we get into our deeper thoughts. Then he manages to wander himself through gang territory and is just sitting there kind of minding his own business, but I would argue he probably knew what he was doing. He kind of knew the neighborhood he was, even if he didn't really know the neighborhood.
Well, that was my question, right? Like, seeing this as an adult, I wondered that.
Yeah,
Does he know where he is?
I think he knows where he is. I think he does. We'll talk about it, but I kind of I get the sense he knows exactly what he's doing in some of these scenes. I will jump right ahead then to, we've got the, I don't want to say B story, but it is kind of the B story, is Sergeant Prendergast. It is his last day, and everybody's kind of expecting him to, book out early and not stay the entire day. His wife is at home telling him that she wants him to come home. What are they going to do? Fire you? It's your last day. All the other cops are giving him a hard time saying, oh, the other guy, he was 5 minutes away from retirement and he got run down in the parking lot. And so everybody's kind of giving him a hard time and, the captain is trying to get him to stay, trying to guilt trip him into staying on the force and not retiring. And so Prendergast is having a little bit of a rough day. Everybody's giving him a hard time for all this, and he's kind of getting it from all directions. In the meantime, he starts to kind of get peripherally involved in tracking down D-Fens, or William Foster, and he's been a part of hearing about all these different bits and pieces. He interviewed the guy from the convenience store when he came in to talk about how he had trashed up his store, and as the movie goes on, he's hearing about all these little details, a guy in a white shirt and a black tie, and so he's piecing things together, and he's going to make this an eventful last day of work. I'm going to jump ahead then to one of probably the most recognizable scenes in the movie, and that is the scene at the Whammy Burger. And that is where he's walking in and he wants his breakfast. They stop serving breakfast. He doesn't care. He wants his breakfast. And you know what, Rick? Have you ever heard the phrase, the customer is always right? Well, here I am. Yeah, that's not our policy. which is a great response. You ever heard the customer is always right? Yeah, it's not our policy.
Not our policy.
I've heard it. Yeah. So then we have the whole scene. He whips out one of his guns. Let me back up for a second. He got the guns because when he ended up in gang territory, he fought back against some of these gang members, beat him with a baseball bat. They went looking for him later on, and they try to do a little bit of a drive-by and gun him down while he's talking on the phone at a phone booth. This supposedly is the scene where the giant inflatable butt is that was going around for the Baby Got Back debut tour. And they end up crashing their car, and he ends up taking their entire duffel bag full of guns with him. Ultimately, he will end up trading his briefcase for a duffel bag full of weapons. So now he's got all those with him. When he's at the store, when he's at the fast food place, he does pull out a gun to threaten them into giving him the breakfast that he wants. And then he even changes his mind and decides, I'm okay with lunch, and tries to order lunch, but even that's not good enough. And so as we go along, there's the kind of collection of different scenarios as he's walking through the city. He ends up at the Army surplus store and meets the guy there who kind of makes him look like Mr. Rogers. And then later on, we've got the scene with the construction crew, and he's upset about the construction crew. They don't seem to be doing any work, and they're just inflating the budget so that they can get paid. And he whips out a rocket launcher. I think his line is something like, I'll give you something to fix. And he whips out the rocket launcher and blows everything up. And then fast forward to, he does finally reach at the end of the movie. He is able to confront his ex-wife and his daughter who is happy to see him, his ex-wife not so much. They end up on a pier at the end of the movie. Prendergast is there, and ultimately D-Fens, he ends up death by cop is his fate. And at that, then Sergeant Prendergast decides that he is going to stay on the force. Is that this is not his last day. He's gonna keep going because that's what he does. He's a good cop, and he's gonna keep doing his thing. So those are the major moments. Did I miss anything, guys? Any other scenes that wanted to mention that I missed here? We could talk about more of them as we talk about our deep thoughts. But any obvious misses I jumped over?
No, I think you doubled back for the right stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you covered the synopsis enough. Yeah.
Okay.
There's gonna be things that pop up, but it's probably during the discussion.
Oh yeah. All right, let's go a little bit deeper. I have an opinion about this, so.
And now, Deep Thoughts.
I have an opinion on this matter.
Don't mince words, Bones. What do you really think?
I like it a lot.
Wow. It's very deep. Thank you.
Wow, it's very deep. Thank you. All right. I was trying to debate if I start off by asking this question or not. Yes, I am going to start this way. Do you like this movie? And welcome, Pat. I saw Pat was able to jump on. He's in the car. We get a thumbs up from Pat. Keep your hands on the wheel, Pat.
Good grief, brother. I know what Elon Musk is selling, but it's not full self-driving. Just putting it out there.
Hey man, I got my knees to drive. Okay, I can.
Wow.
So, do you like this movie?
Yes, I do.
I'm going to say yes, but man, it gives me it definitely has I think the first time I saw it, I was like, yeah, great, I don't know, like I was 20, 21, 22. And now when I see it, it just gives me a little bit more of a sicker feeling about certain things. So,
I mean,
I like the movie, but I don't like the way it makes me feel.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it as a piece of art,
It
as a
works.
way of looking at the human condition. I think that's, it makes you think a little bit, which is good.
A lot more sadder this time around too, for some reason, than I remember it at 22. But
Right?
it had to be just sad then, but it's so much sadder now. And again, you think about it, we're older, we're married, all of us, like all these, you got kids and the jobs, and there's just so many things that make it a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
Agreed.
From a couple perspectives. I mean, I definitely had a lot more, and I'll get into this later, but the Officer Pendergrass story, much more, made me think a lot more about this movie this time around than I did the first time.
Okay. Patrick, what about you?
I'm hearing everything you guys say, and I think I'm going to take a little bit of each one of your answers. Yes, I very much enjoyed the movie. Yes, I very much got just feeling from it, because I kind of like, well, who was the good guy in it kind of deal. And obviously, I guess Officer Pendergrass would be the good guy. There were parts of it that I very much liked. I think this maybe was the first time I've seen it all the way through.
Okay.
There were parts of it that, boy, I don't want to say I thought they could have been better, because that just sounds a little bit too value judgment-esque. But I guess I just had different expectations. Like, I thought it was going to go a different way. And so I kind of bumped up against a couple of things with the movie. I mean, I thought Robert Duvall was amazing. I thought Michael Douglas was amazing in their roles. But yeah, I guess the stuff that kind of bugged me the most was just, I didn't expect it to be, like, there were things that I expected to be different.
Yeah. All right, let me ask you. I didn't say mine. Yes, I do enjoy this movie, but kind of in the same way you all have mentioned. When I first watched this, I think I was 15, 16 years old, saw it in high school, and it was one of those kind of like, I've heard of this one, like some of my buddies have talked about this. I'm putting it on like a, it was on the same list of, hey, have you seen Pulp Fiction? You got to watch that one. Have you seen Falling Down? You got to watch Falling Down. People had all these lists of, here's the stuff you got to see. If you like these kind of movies, you got to see this. Have you seen Death Wish? Like, if you like Death Wish, you got to watch this one. So all these different kind of similar movies, watching those around the same time. So watching it at 15, 16 years old, it was kind of like that. It was kind of like, hey, I haven't seen a movie like this before. This is kind of cool. This is cool. Dude's angry. Like, I'm not that angry, but, I kind of get some of this. Like, he's mad at the world and all this other stuff. All right, cool. Fast forward to 2 years ago was the last time before this week that I saw this. And I mentioned already that obviously within the last few years, not just the last few years, but just within the last couple of years or so, we have had there's a heightened racial tension. There have been riots in the cities and other things going on, especially 2-3 years ago with the George Floyd stuff and all that. And yeah, so it was a very different time, and I didn't plan to watch it. I was just looking for something, came across it. I was like, I saw that one back in high school. I think it's about time to watch it again. And I just put it on while I was doing some other things. And as I was watching it that time and again this time, I was getting that same feeling that you guys talked about of, yeah, it's a well put together movie. Like, I like the performances, and I like kind of the premise of this from the standpoint of a piece of film. But at the same time, it just maybe it hits a little too close to reality in some places. So I'm going to ask my next question this way. We'll start off this way, and this, I'm sure it'll bring out some of the other thoughts that we're having. D-Fens, whether you want to call him D-Fens or William Foster, Bill Foster, whatever you want to call him, is he the hero or the villain of this movie?
Neither. He's neither. I think that I'm trying to think of how I could approach the stuff with the questions and stuff. But I think what I want to say is I think what the movie does so well is it makes you associate and pull for him. You want him to reunite with his family. You want everyone to kind of, in many ways, leave him alone. Like, it starts off small. Everything starts off small. Like, even literally, if you don't catch it, it's the heat. Yeah. The heat of LA. It's his air conditioning's not working. The traffic jam. We've all been there. And I think we can all associate with those times where you're just having that day and just everything seems to go wrong. So you're pulling for him because everything's going wrong. I don't think he intentionally goes into the gangland territory to say, I want to provoke them. I think he just goes there not really thinking about it, which honestly, we should be able to go wherever we want and eat our lunch or do whatever we want or sit down wherever we want. And there shouldn't be gang territory. There shouldn't be a place you couldn't go, you know. The burger thing, you get that burger and it doesn't look like what's on the menu. Like all the little things that we experience, but we don't break because we don't also have this other underlying situation going on, or at least most of us don't, hopefully. But it also is scary because many people do have some of these underlyings. So how close are we to having that breaking point where you hear somebody who was a good person who just snapped, you know? So I think there's a scariness of that. And then you counter that with Pendergrass, and here's a guy who's almost the complete opposite, a bit of a doormat to a certain degree. He's doing everything to please his wife who's had issues with the baby. He doesn't even swear, you find out. He's a guy who's so good at not breaking, at not falling down, that he almost becomes, at the end, he falls down just enough. If you notice at the end, he starts to break through. He's going to be the doormat. He's going to go do what his wife wants and go to Arizona, wherever he's going, where he doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to do any of this stuff. He has that kind of emotional relationship with the other lady. So he's kind of like the silent sort of hero of all of us who kind of put up with everything. And then you have this guy who we're witnessing totally unfold. So there's a contrast between the characters where one unfolds completely to a point where you actually you're afraid of him. And the other guy, you're like, you want him to kind of come out of that shell a bit and like stand up to all the crap that kind of life is throwing at him, his coworkers. He finally punches that dude. He finally mouths off, which is my favorite lines at the end, when the way he delivers the F you very much at the end when he's being in it. We played that back 3 times, me and Hunter, because it was just funny. But that's a guy who would not have done that a week ago or even a day ago. So it's just an interesting thing of like, where are boundaries and what's socially acceptable, and at what point are you kind of silently dealing with things and becoming a victim, and at other times where are you becoming the perpetrator? Where are you crossing the line by getting too over the top? At what point do we deal with all these daily things that we face without breaking, without falling down and not being able to get back up?
I hear exactly what you're saying, and it's interesting, Dennis. I kind of had a different reaction. Like, I saw him this time, I saw him as the villain, right? Like,
right,
no one forced him to. I did, and I was surprised.
Even with the gang guys.
Even with the gang guys, like, and it surprised me because I thought Falling Down was about a regular guy that just reached his breaking point. But in this, and maybe I got to go back and watch it, there was already a whole backstory of him, of him being already having a restraining order from his wife. She wanted nothing to do with him. She was scared of him. And and that's why I was almost disappointed, because I was like, keep that a little bit more secret. Let that unfold at the end. I felt like I already knew what was going to happen. The guy's already a bad guy. Like, he's trying to just get home, but he's
you don't know that though until the gangland scene already happened.
Well, you're talking about the gangland scene. And yeah, I agree, because there were the gangbangers, and it was just like, it's the old saying of, you picked the wrong house to break into. You picked with the wrong guy. And I get that. And there's the whole, but he was still the bad guy there. And I have never seen this movie. And then I'm like, well, at the beginning, they already established that he's kind of this nut job that is going after his family wants him away. I already know that. So I already know he's the bad guy. That's kind of what my reaction was. And it was kind of like, what kind of kept me in the movie then was the Pendergrass thing, because here's a guy that's assaulting the crime. Wait a minute, a baseball bat? And then he tries to tell people, and all the jerks in his life just don't listen to him. Yeah. Okay, wait, a white shirt and a tie? And no one listens to, and it's just like, dude, the guy's doing good police work. He's establishing this connection. Like, he's putting this together, and that's what kept me in the movie. but as soon as I found out that he was, I don't know, stalking his wife or, like.
Well, here's the interesting thing about that. And by no means am I I don't ever want this to get out that I'm justifying any domestic abuse or anything like that. Because there's obviously verbal and there's physical and there's this. From what I gather and from some of the conversations where the police even start questioning her some things, the fact that daughter loved him, okay, and the daughter was like, oh my God, daddy, okay, this was between two adults. And now granted, she has some pretty good, based on you watch the home video that he's watching, and he starts to realize that too, that he had a temper. He had a temper, and that's what he was guilty of. There is in no way, is there any sign that he actually physically abused her or tormented her in any other way other than having a temper. And she even said, I'm just afraid that he might hurt me one day. And the guy was like, well, he never did anything. He never lifted a finger against you. No. She's like, well, no. And so there's a divorce and there's a relationship and everything else there where obviously there's a guy who has pressure on him and he has he's a naturally whatever, for whatever reason, he has a very bad temper. But he never acted on the temper in a physical way towards his daughter or towards her, according to the dialogue in the movie. So I don't know if I would label him as a bad person right away, other than a man who doesn't deal with pressure or cope with things very well, and he has a lot of stress and he doesn't handle it very well, and he has a temper, which many people are probably guilty of. So I don't know if I would say bad man right away. I think the divorce obviously hurt him. Not seeing his daughter hurt him, and the fact
and
that
being consistently told that he wasn't allowed to,
it
was all piling on for this guy,
So I don't want to sit there and say that it's the wife's fault, because she's got to do what also is in her best interest to keep herself safe. And if she was worried that he was going to hurt him or hurt her, that might be grounds for whatever. But at the same time, the way that I think that it was a conversation with the cop, and they kind of questioned her, and she sort of questioned herself to a certain degree of like, well, and then kind of was like, well, what am I supposed to do? Kind of wait till it happens? I always thought like you might, which again, her gut, I get that, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, did she overreact? Did she shun him from the daughter's life so much that this pushed him even, you know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Then they shouldn't have written in a restraining order. If they were
you can get a restraining order. You can get a restraining order, that's not as difficult to do from what I understand. Yeah. Like she fears for her life, so she got a restraining order from her because he kept trying to obviously talk to her to get, like, if you ask the mom, even there's some interesting conversations where when he goes home and they go to the house where the mother is, and she's talking about how that was so devastating that she would not let him see his daughter. And I think, pose the question to any one of us, if you were not allowed to see your child and you did nothing physically wrong, and you did nothing that you deemed that was dangerous to put it, would that, how would we be affected? I'm just introspectively just like asking myself, like, God, I don't know, if somebody just put a restraining order for no reason and got that granted, and then all of a sudden I can't see my child, like, how will that devastate me as a father, as a man? So I'm just saying that's another piece in that puzzle where I don't think right away. I think at some point, yes, he breaks bad. It's kind of like Breaking Bad. At what point in that movie or that TV show does the guy break bad? Started off with good, again, getting on a side tangent with the TV series Breaking Bad, but there's sort of a similar thing. When I was talking to Hunter about this, because me and Hunter watched this time, my son, and he was sort of saying the same thing. He sided with him in the fact that he was kind of, he had this conversation about why wouldn't the mom let him see the daughter? You can do it with supervised visits. You can make sure that he goes to therapy. There are ways to do that without shutting a person out from his child, who the child obviously looked like she loved him and cared about him, and he loved and cared her as well. So I don't think straightforward bad guy, I ever got that thing like right from the beginning or right in the middle. It was like as it started escalating and you could tell he was unraveling, and then because he even says at the end, he goes, am I the bad guy? And Pendergrass, he has that conversation at the end. I think that's the movie right there. Like, I did everything people wanted me to do. He says that. He's like, I worked my job and then I'm told I'm obsolete. His wife is telling him he's obsolete. It's the guy who's literally being pushed to the edge and handling it obviously poorly, but I don't know that I can clearly just sit there and go, I hate this guy and he's a bad guy. I feel it's a really sad story. At the end, the second time, and I knew where it was going because I've seen it before. I was just going, man, like, why can't they Why can't there just be some sort of resolution at the end? He has a good part of his day at the end, and he doesn't. Every time it's kind of like wishing, like when Steve McQueen jumps over that in The Great Escape. You want that to happen. And this one, I always find myself going, I wish like there's a different ending, that there's some sort of resolution at the end. Doesn't mean they have to get back together, but could they not compromise? Could they not say, you get to see your daughter. She obviously loves you and you obviously love her. You've got some issues you got to work on, and that's part of the deal. I don't know.
So one of the things I had found an article from '93 that it was actually written by Kirk Douglas, and it was kind of his response to some of the different responses that were coming out from this movie. And he says in this article, it's from the Los Angeles Times, for the different people that are reviewing and either condemning or enjoying the movie, he comments and he says, "Did you really see the film? If you did, see it again. Michael Douglas's character, is not the hero, quote, newest urban icon. He is the villain and the victim. Of course, we see many elements of our society that contributed to his madness. We even pity him, but the movie never condones his actions."
Yep.
So
sounds about right.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like this movie, this time watching the movie, I saw him much more as the villain than I did the first two times I remember seeing this movie. That doesn't mean that I consider him to be a full-on unredeemable villain in this movie, because I think, as you guys are saying, he starts off, if you're seeing this movie for the first time, he starts off sympathetic. It's a guy who's being pushed, like you guys have all said. It's those little tiny chips away, wearing you down, just the maddening torture of these little tiny things. But very, very quickly, you do get, you get when he's in the convenience store and he's trying to get some change to make a phone call, and it's the store's policy. He's not going to give change unless somebody buys something. All right, that's the store's policy. So, but he already gets angry at that. He goes to buy something, and the Coke is 35 cents more than what he expects to pay for it. He thinks he should pay about 50 cents. It's 85 cents. Then he starts getting angry, and because of the perceived slight by being nickeled and dimed by this convenience store owner, he starts in on this kind of racist tirade about the whole thing. Like if you're going to come to America, at least learn the language, and just laying into all that kind of stuff. And I think watching it this time around too, that when I first watched this movie years ago, it took a while into the movie before my sympathy for him eroded away. And this time watching the movie, my sympathy for him was gone so much faster. And I think it's just a difference in the age I was and the time when I first saw this versus seeing it now, and I'm older and there's been more things in the world and in life that we've gone through. And so I think some of that colored my viewing of it this time around, and I was less likely to stay sympathetic for his character as the movie went on. That eroded much faster for me this time.
Yeah, going in and bashing up a guy's store and going in, and the whole scene with the whole, like, oh, are you kidding me? You're not serving breakfast. It's 11:33. You're not serving breakfast. Like, I get that. But the whole thing where he pulls the gun out with his finger on the trigger and he starts waving the thing around, and then it's kind of like, that's the kind of stuff that it's just like, okay, I can't be sympathetic with that. Like, I can't. And I can't. And yeah, I'm seeing the movie in a modern lens, but I think everything that we're seeing in society right now is maybe what this movie was maybe kind of warning about or pointing to or whatnot. But it's like, I can't see that as a sympathetic character. I mean,
right, I'm going to jump in, and I'm just going to say, like, okay, so I got to first clarify this so people don't think I'm crazy out here. But
I'm not judging you. I'm not judging you.
I agree with you guys on the sense of, like, what he's doing. He makes so many bad and poor choices and wrong choices, and you could even say villainous choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm going to go on the flip side now. Having said that I agree with you on all that. Don't think the movie was set up that way to just be that clear and black and white. What I think they did so well with this was they're putting all these situations in there that we see, witness, and allow and tolerate. And tolerate is a key word here, because in this case, he has no tolerance. He has lost all tolerance for everything. All right, so that's why he is acting the way he does. But all of us underneath this, I think, have issues with sometimes the way society has become, a crudeness, a game, the fact that, like, if I go through every situation that he has, every single one, even down to the wife, if you go down to every single situation, that store owner was an ass. That store owner was rude to him. That store owner knew that he was trying to make a phone call and could have easily gave him the change plus an additional to make the phone call. In a civil society, he would do that. So when you open that drawer, he could easily give him the change, the dollar for the phone call, and do that and be a good person as well. He's not. There's not that simple courtesy of respecting another human being, which then triggers him. And again, not condoning his behavior. I'm saying two people played a part in this. The gangland stuff, these guys are totally in the wrong. You don't have a fee where you have to charge people for trespassing or going through you don't own that land. The guy who's like totally a bigot against the homosexual people in the store. You know, that's the one where he really crossed the line, because I didn't realize the first time I saw the movie. I thought he just like beats that guy up and leaves. Here he killed him. So he murdered that guy. But that guy was also pretty much close to murdering him. So golf guys. How many people don't know pompous, rich people who just had, and the whole idea of all the land that he says could be used for this and that. The guy with the construction even admits that, yes, there really is nothing wrong with this street. And most likely that is the case, because we know that is part of politics, is that there's underhand paying this underhand, and there's politics going on. Why are they always fixing these things? And that they're made to keep spending money with the budgets and things like that. So there is the politics of that. The wife, probably you're overreacting to the point to where, when I say overreacting, that she can be concerned about that, but there's also a different way to handle that. When you watch the video where he's talking, yes, does he lose his cool a little bit and he raises his voice and she gets all like scared or whatever? At the same time, I'm sure she's yelled at him just like that, but he didn't slap a restraint. Like, most likely, I would say that there's probably been an argument or something like that where I don't know how
we're writing a lot of backstory. I'm just saying
we are. My point is, I'm saying they put all those things in there, Pat, because it's things that we witness and know and allow every single day that we put up with. And we don't cross that line. And they're going to give him that, like, just because it's a movie and they got to string him along to show it keep on escalating. We know that, like, again, 11:32, you're telling me if the guy really wanted breakfast, they couldn't have probably been like, oh, we'll squeeze it in, or at least be a little bit like, oh, I'm so sorry, it's the policy. Instead, they were kind of like smug about it. Like and he's like, no, like everybody that he encounters that he flips out on, honestly, they are just as bad in terms of like the society as a whole. And I think that's the commentary on how we are as a social construct of, like, people are just like, there's nobody in here who's nice to him. Nobody.
Yeah.
Show me one person who's actually nice to him during this whole entire movie. He never catches a break with one person. Doesn't
justify pulling a gun.
I get that. Doesn't justify pulling the gun. 100%. I agree. We're on the same page with that. But my point is, what justifies everyone else's behavior? I think it makes us look at how we treat each other as society, and you don't know who that falling down guy is. They say it in school with kids and bullies. You don't know what that kid's dealing with at home, what that final kind of thing you say to a kid or you do that could push that kid over the edge, for self-harm or for anything else. So I'm like, I think it's a good shining light, not just on his character, but I think it also makes us look at how society is like feeds into this. Like, if you have a bad day and you just keep having a bad day and people keep just pouring it on, like, why couldn't what if that guy gave him the money for his phone call right from the start? Does he have the rest of those experiences? Does he even have the gun in his hand? Did he buy the gun? No, he didn't get the gun. He got the gun from the gang guys who tried to shoot him, who killed other people in the drive-by, which ticks people off all the time. Because I told my son, I go, that's typically what happens. I said, in gang drive-bys, they usually get all the innocent bystanders and kill some baby. And it just ticks you off even more because they don't even hit the person they're trying to hit. So, like, all those like scenarios that I think the scriptwriter put in were there to kind of show us that, like, it's all these things we experience.
No, I hear you. And I mean, that was kind of my frustration too, is like Pendergrass trying to solve the crime. No one's listening to him. They're in the traffic jam at the beginning. And like the police officers, like, there's lots of moving metal and flying, and they're like in bumper to bumper traffic. Pendergrass is like looking around, and it was just like humorous things like that. I just think we got to be careful of writing the backstory.
The cop that Pendergrass dealt with that when pushing the car out of the way was a jerk.
It was. If we're gonna write the backstory and say, well, the wife was probably nagging him, if we're getting,
didn't say I never used the word nagging.
If if we're going to write that backstory, then we got to write the backstory and say, well, maybe the clerk, the shop owner, what's his backstory? You know, like I get that.
Everybody might have a backstory. You're absolutely right.
And so I just, again, I don't see that.
And we could act like Pendergrast, or we could act like D-Fens.
Right. And that's my thing, is like, I don't see D-Fens as this poor guy that, well, he's just, oh, shucks. When he pulled out the gun, that's it. Now, does all parts of society bear some responsibility in it? Is there a collective responsibility? Oh yeah, I hear it. That's the way I try to live my life. That's the way I vote. All those things lead into it, that I think we bear some measure of it. And I mean, when he was trespassing on the golf course, let's take a look in recent years past. How many times has someone been, quote unquote, trespassing in a gated community or walking through a gated community that looked different, had a different color of skin or different whatever, and was accosted or stopped or detained or all this kind of thing, and for nothing more than just walking down the street? So I mean, like, I get all those things, and I can understand, like, okay, you drove this guy to the breaking point, but you know, he was the guy holding the gun and waving it around. He was the guy, like, and I know that the rocket launcher, that was almost cartoonish when they
where the kids helping him with the directions.
That was awesome. You just got to flip this up and push this button, and then.
But I mean, you're still launching a rocket. Like, how many people would have gotten taken out with that? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I don't think at this point you've it's gotten past like reality. And I think I don't know, right. At least I took it like that, like almost like I wouldn't say a dark comedy type of thing effect to it at this point, where obviously he's going so far over the top now with the bag full of guns and everything. Like, I think it gets that point, and it's not like almost a reality situation. He's just lost all reality. He's broken now completely. Like, he is not, like, he's fallen down and he's not getting up. And you realize that with the rocket launcher, with the gun, like, that's where I say I draw the line. I don't think because even when in the beginning, the police were like, well, he didn't steal anything. He paid for his soda. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's all those little things where it's like he wasn't trying to be a dick to everybody. He really wasn't. He was reacting poorly and being a dick, but like, his goal was he still paid for the damn drink. The guy was like, well, wait, did he rob me? He didn't rob me. Well, I guess he robbed his bat, but he didn't. He paid for the soda. You know,
you're a little bit.
Yeah, but he also destroyed his store. I mean, there's a lot.
Well, they started fighting because the guy wanted to pull a bat on him and everything else too. So everything was getting escalated because of two people. Right. And I will say it's because of two people in that situation. Again, does he have the right to do that? No.
Restorative justice thing that you're advocating, Dennis.
The what?
You're advocating restorative justice for him. Yeah,
no, I'm not advocating it. I'm explaining that why they wrote it into the movie.
He's not a bad guy. He's just a bad guy.
No. He's I think at the heart, it's very easy to say that he's a bad guy, and that none of us have that. Like, I think it's foolish to say that nobody has that capability. I always think that's the dangerous thing. I would sit there and say that I don't. Like, I feel like I'm definitely more on the Pendergrast side of things in terms of containing and dealing with a lot of stuff where I don't start arguments when I have bad service at a thing. When I encounter these things, you know, people do that. And it's like, some people will be like, well, why don't you say something? Why don't you know what? Because it's not going to solve anything right now. I'm good. My person might be having a bad day. That's how I kind of go about it. And I kind of move along my day. So I'm very much on the Pendergrast mentality, but I recognize that everyone is capable of the D-Fens mentality. And I think that it's foolish to not think that. It's like somebody said, like, if you all think that you're the hero, and if you went back into the 1920s and 30s, 40s of Germany, that you assume you would be the good person, the odds are you wouldn't. The odds are you'd go along with it. That's what the odds are. But in hindsight, we all could say that. So I always say, like, this is a self-reflective piece of me defending him to a degree, of the sense that everyone has darkness possibly capable in them. They're that pushing point that they get to. And that you have to be aware of that. And I think that this film does a nice job of really highlighting how ugly that looks when you give in to those darker sides and you lose all control. So again, I'm not defending him or his actions or the gun. I'm very anti all that. But I think I'm taking maybe a different message from why they made this film and the way that they filmed it and all the scenes that build up. Why they were very careful to not have him be 100%, in my opinion, the bad guy right away, and why everyone else played a part in his falling down. It's like they just kept pushing him. He never got a chance to get up. Nobody gives him a break in this whole entire film.
So let me ask you guys this question, because I've heard this thrown out as a possible scenario for this movie. Do you think I was reading one kind of quasi review of this, and they said, watching this movie, I truly believe that it was D-Fens' intention all along to go to his house and kill his family.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No, and I think the movie even tries to telegraph that to you, like, because like he changes clothes from that white button-down shirt and tie thing to his more the G.I. Joe, they call him.
Joe thing, yeah.
I think they're trying to show his descent into madness, for lack of a better word.
So what about when as he gets closer to getting home and he's calling his wife on the phone? Some of the stuff he says is pretty cruel stuff.
Yeah.
He's like, he makes the comment, she says something like, "You're just trying to scare me," and he asks, "Well, am I doing it? Am I succeeding?" And he's almost kind of like happy about this, like that he's enjoying the torment.
Yeah, he's already gone at that point.
Well, and then he makes that comment later on. In some South American countries, it's still legal to kill your wife if she insults you.
Yeah, how about that?
Whoa there, buddy.
Easy, big fella.
Hold on now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, at that point, he's already gone. He's irredeemable at that point. And I think Pendergrass, even though he gives him a chance at the end, he realizes that he's obsolete. That I forgot what the dialogue at the end is. It's in there somewhere. Oh, man. Let me see if I can find it.
You talking about the financial? Oh, no, Pendergrass. That's a different conversation. The one where he goes, "I'm not financially
viable."
Is it viable that he says?
Economically viable, yeah.
Economically viable. That's it. I knew I didn't have it right.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what I was wrong about.
Which the sign earlier is the showing that
That's
signs earlier about that. There's theme.
Call back to that, yeah.
Even the guy who was homeless or whatever, who was asking him for something, when he was just sort of like that guy was a jerk. Like, I don't know anyone in this film who was good to him at all, ever. Like, who was? Can you give me one person who was actually decent to him at any point when he was initially decent to them? He was always met with some sort of kind of smart ass or somebody playing the system or somebody being a jerk to him, or like pulling and again, that shop thing. And again, I'm not just, he obviously went for the race card after that and brought up the Korean thing and about the country and about all that. Like, he did all that. Like it was just, and again, they're his buttons and he's responsible for pushing his own buttons, not somebody else. But my point is, the way they set this up, it was just things that we encounter every day, yet we are able to make it through and cope with. And he was not.
Now, ironically, at first, the only person that was really kind to him was the white supremacist army surplus shop owner.
Right.
And then ultimately, probably the only other person that really showed him like any type of kindness might have been Prendergast.
Yeah.
Well, at the end, he sort of did. And he was giving him a chance, like saying, "We don't have to do this." Like, "Hey, no," like he wasn't like wanting to shoot him. And that was that conversation at the end. But obviously at that point, like I said, he's so far gone. And in the end, what does he say? Like, again, the daughter. So, and you have a choice. I can kill you or you can kill me, and my daughter will get the insurance. So again, he's still looking at his daughter getting the insurance. So again, you can look at it, a guy who really loved his daughter, and what did that do? Ripping a man away from his daughter and not letting him ever see her. You could tell in the video that, like, with the video, like, obviously he had the temper, but you could tell that he also loved his daughter. So again, not making excuses for gun behavior.
As long as she was riding the horse. Just take the chips. Just take the chips. Take the chips.
Does he have a temper issue? Yes, he does. And like I said, if you knocked off everybody else and just locked them up who had a temper, you'd be locking up most of the population. There's so many people I know who have tempers. The thing is, at what point is treating somebody somewhat kindly, getting somebody professional mental help, did they go that route? They don't even talk about that. Was there counseling, or did she just leave him? I don't know. And again, I'm very far from that character in reality. Like, I really am. Like, I'm not nuts or anything. I'm just saying, I recognize it. I've recognized it in other people, and I've heard other people's stories, and I know those type of situations. So I realize that, like, everybody can be one step away from falling down, I think, and I'm like, when just shit goes wrong and shit keeps going wrong and people and things happen, it's like, you see some people who lose it, and it's sad and it's tragic and it's horrible. So it's just again, I think that's what this movie's trying to do. So I think if we just easily just write him off as the villain and he's the bad guy right away and everything he does is wrong and everyone else is right, I think then we're missing the point of the film. That's just my opinion. I think it's genius that he starts off as someone who you kind of relate to a little bit. Like who wouldn't want to say, like the gang guys, like right there, when he just starts hitting him with the briefcase.
You want my briefcase?
You want the briefcase?
Here.
Hunter starts cracking up and laughing at that when he's watching it, you know? And
oh my God, my brother.
I would have done that. That's what I did at that age too. I remember all my brothers and us watching that scene and going, wow, God, that kind of felt good. But here are these gang dudes who are just being all badass. And he just kind of, this one guy, this kind of nerdy looking guy with a pocket protector and a tie, just kind of hits him with a briefcase and just tells him what everyone else would like to say. He's speaking for a lot of what people would like to say to that kind of attitude of, oh, this is my territory, it's my game. You know, and he said, maybe if you could, I forget what he says, if you spell or was there some line about the graffiti or
maybe
something too?
Maybe if you wrote it in English.
Yeah, there's something, there is something like that. Yeah. And it's just like, yeah, who wouldn't want to, like, when you get that burger and it looks like crap, like you're thinking this looks like shit, it's all greasy and everything else, it looks nothing like what's on that thing. Like everybody thinks those things, and I think to a certain degree they write it in so that it kind of, we can identify with a little bit. So if I think we just totally don't identify with him in any aspect whatsoever, it misses the point of how tragic it is that he turns into the bad guy.
That you mentioned the scene with the gangbangers, like that's the scene from the movie that I remember. The switchblade, give me your briefcase. Yeah. Like that's the scene.
Yeah, it's the one that we and what was in his briefcase was just sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, and that's where he ends up getting the guns from one of the people that was like out to get again. And I think you got to pay attention to Pendergrass' story because there's two stories going on here, and there's the guy who is the guy who on the other end is taking crap from everybody. Realistically, he's letting his wife at this point control because he feels bad for her. He at one point tells her, remember to shut up. Remember that? So is he now, should she get a restraining order on him, Pat? Because he loses it with her and tells her to shut up.
Oh, no. Hold on. Hey, man, you mansplain me and gaslight me as much as you want. But don't forget, I got a Y chromosome too. I don't have to deal with that stuff. That's, I'm sorry, you're better than that. You're better. I'm not going to let you fall into that. You're a better man than that.
But is he? Are we sure?
Yeah. Maybe some of your,
Well, should he have talked to his wife that way?
Pardon me?
Should Pendergrass have talked to his wife that way? Did he lose it?
No, he didn't lose it. And he wasn't screaming. He's just like, okay, shut up. Like, that's enough. But he wasn't sitting there screaming at, like, the kid, sit on the horse, go, you got to sit on the horse. He wasn't coming home stopping with a gun and calling and stalking and all this kind of stuff. See, that's the difference there. And she doesn't have the, okay, that's fine. But again,
what's going to happen when he goes home and tells her he's still going to, you don't get to see what happens when he tells her he's still going to be a police officer, that he's not going to Arizona. You're not seeing that part of Pendergrass.
Right.
My point is, situations can always bring up situations, and I'm just saying it's all dependent on how we act on these things and how he was somebody who never let off any steam. It looks like they said, I don't trust a guy who never swears, was like that. That's what the police chief said to him. He ends up slugging the guy who insults his wife. You know, he ends up talking back to his wife and finally kind of standing up and telling her like, hey, knock it off. He starts to, I don't know if you want to use the whatever the traditional phrase, he starts to kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to use the phrase grow a pair, but like he was so almost too pleasing for everybody else that he was not living his life the way he kind of wanted to. And he was doing everything else because of other people, which you can say is noble, but which you also could say is not being true to himself. And at the end,
but he played the game. He played the game and he ended up winning. He was like, okay, he played along, but he was the one that solved the crime.
Oh, I get it. Yeah. If anybody's a hero, and it's here, but he also had to kind of come out of that mode because they kept telling him to leave it alone. Like, you're not a police guy anymore. Like, let it go. Like, he kept getting shut down, like everywhere. As you said, he was trying to. Had he not fought through that, had he not kind of spoke up for himself, had he not kept pursuing it, had he not kind of found his own voice and like not just done what everybody else told him to do, he wouldn't have solved the crime. And he has a kind of a metamorphosis throughout this whole piece. So both characters change, One comes out of that kind of meek, kind of, I wouldn't say meek, but like patronizing, like he's just going along with what everybody does. He's kind of, you could tell he's not really happy. The lady that he has a kind of the emotional affair with knows it as well.
Yeah.
She's the only one who really seems to know him more than his wife, to be honest, in that case. And it's
I'm just saying, I can't write a backstory. I've got to look at the facts that the movie.
I think they give you backstory. I think they give you. You got to listen to the conversations. They give you backstory.
I'm just because you called my name out, so you called me out. So I'm just going to defend here. I don't think I'm not signing on to that. Oh well, so he tells someone to shut up, so that makes him equal. That's why D-Fens is really okay. He was just losing his temper. Like, I'm sorry, man. They present a scale here in this movie. And the D-Fens character was off the scale. Now, am I saying that was 100% his fault because he was painted as this 100% evil guy? No, I think he was painted as a three-dimensional human character that cracked. And I'm fine with that. But he cracked. And I don't think that we can just, well, maybe it was this, or maybe there was that, or maybe there was the other thing. It shows him yelling at the family, threatening their life, and he ends up chasing them on a pier with a gun. I really don't think that you can equate those two as saying their actions were equal. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't. So
I don't think you're saying that. I don't think anybody's saying their actions are equal. Their actions are very different. I've never said their actions are equal.
Except for 5 minutes ago when you said Pat, he said shut up his wife. So is he?
I'm just saying that he lost. The point of that was that he lost his temper with his wife really quick. He kind of like, he got loud with her. He yelled at her and he told her to shut up.
Well,
he had his falling down moment. And the difference is Pendergrass had his moment and moved on.
Yeah. Exactly. But
where
he had a
D-Fens, not so much with the moving on.
No.
Boy couldn't move on.
You also
anywhere.
like, there's also some weird, me and Hunter were talking, like there's a little bit of the story with the wife of Pendergrass and the death of the child, that the child died of sudden infant death syndrome, but it was at 2 years old. And that was kind of weird. He sort of made it sound like there was doubt about that, and that it was is there some underlining? And she seemed like the wife had cracked. She seemed a bit like out there.
She was a bit off, that's for sure.
She was definitely a bit off. And
whether it was anything to do with that,
most likely the death of a child, probably. But at the same time, there's sort of a gray area that you don't even know about. That's like interesting about that, like where they brought up the way that they couldn't have just simply said that. You could have wrote it any different way of how that kid died. How his daughter,
it was interesting the way they showed
story, and it's a weird story to throw in for the death of a child, to say that it was sudden infant death syndrome, but it was at 2 years, and he sort of gives you that question or look like, I don't get like how that's sudden infant death at 2 years.
It's like Pendergrass is processing it, and it's almost like they were trying to. I felt like this was another one of those showing the difference in the way these two guys process. Like Pendergrass is processing this thing that happened to him, and he's incredulous about it. And he's just like, I can't believe this happened. 2 years old. And but if that had happened to D-Fens, it would have been one more thing, and he would have just sent him into a tailspin.
Yeah. Yep. John?
I'm just listening to you guys, and I just keep thinking, sometimes even when you win.
It's a nihilistic movie.
Yeah, well, a little bit.
No, I think one of the interesting things about his character is how when you look at him, he is so stuck in the pre-Cold War era. The way he dresses, his job, his haircut, his everything he does is so much 50s and 60s America. And that's what I think is interesting about the two characters is each of them, the times they are a-changing, and between the two of them, between Prendergast and D-Fens, things are changing, and like you guys are saying, they're dealing with it in very different ways. He got fired because his skills are no longer, his skills are probably obsolete. He's building missiles to defend against the communists, I think his mother says. Well, by 1993, that's not quite so much an issue anymore. And that piece is starting to fade away. And Prendergast, same thing. Like he's gotten to the point where he's an old school cop. He's kind of on his way out, and he's just kind of dealing with it. And kind of going along, going with the flow kind of a deal. And D-Fens obviously not going with the flow. But yeah, I thought kind of this time, especially watching it this time, I thought it was kind of an interesting take on as things are shifting out of the 80s. Sometimes we talk about how you don't really leave a decade until 2 or 3 years after that decade's over. I kind of had the feeling with this movie too. It's like this is coming out in 93, but it's definitely a commentary on, all right, so we're out the other side of the 70s and 80s, and we're coming into the 90s, and I think what's interesting is you do get in a lot of, as we get into the 90s, you do get a lot of, I don't know, to me sometimes the 90s seemed like it was kind of an angry decade. Like the music was getting a little angrier. And, I think some of the promises of the 80s, things were going to get better. It was going to be a party. Things were going to be good. And I think some of those promises didn't come to fruition, and I think people start to get frustrated. And so I don't know. I thought this was kind of an interesting look at that. But I think visually, too, just his changes over the course of the movie. I think you guys had mentioned it earlier, just his change from the very 50s, 1960s look to basically G.I. Joe with the whole outfit at the end. Yeah.
Well, there's the inner transformation that's going on, and then there's the outer one. And I think that point with the G.I. Joe type of outfit, he even states it to his wife on the phone. And I think that he recognized that moment. He referred to it as, I think here it is. I passed the point of no return. Beth, do you know what that is? That's the point in the journey where it's no longer where it's longer to go back to the beginning than it is to continue to the end. It's like, do you remember when those astronauts got in trouble? They were going to the moon and something went wrong. I don't know. Somebody screwed up and they had to get them back to Earth, but they passed the point of no return. So they had to go all the way around the moon to get back, and they were out of contact for hours. Everybody waited breathlessly to see if a bunch of dead guys in a can would pop out on the other side. Well, that's me. So he's already saying, like, at this point, I'm like almost a dead guy. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm done. I'm on the other side of the moon now, out of contact. And everybody's going to have to wait till I pop out.
Right.
And that's when he's talking to his wife, and that's when she gets scared and says the police are here. So he's obviously saying, like, I passed, like, he wasn't there, but now he's there. And that's, I think, symbolized by the G.I. Joe outfit, symbolized by the transition. And again, I don't think you get there at the gang thing or at the traffic jam. I don't think you get there. I think that I think you're selling that character and his plight and everything he's been through, and not being sympathetic in any way whatsoever, to simply just say that that's a bad man. To me, that's a cop-out. And I think it's an easy, quick, hey, that guy's an asshole. I'm nothing like him. No one's like him. At that point, a lot of people are like him. And again, I don't think I'm like him, and I know I'm saying that, like, but I know that it's possible that when your tolerance is low, like, you're capable of being there. Everybody is, and I think it's important to always be aware of that, so that you never cross that line, so you never fall down, so you don't go to the other side of the moon. The other thing too, I lost my job. Well, actually, I didn't lose it; it lost me. I'm overeducated, underskilled. Maybe it's the other way around. I forget, but I'm obsolete. I'm not economically viable. And then the conversation with Sergeant Prendergast at the end is, now let's go meet some nice policemen. They're good guys. Come on, let's go. So he's trying to be nice to him, but he's already, like, had that happened a half hour before in the movie, would that outcome been different? Would he have gone with him? But at this point, he's already past that point. He says, I'm the bad guy. And he's like, how'd that happen? I did everything they told me. Did you know I build missiles? I helped to protect America. You should be rewarded for that. Instead, they give it to the plastic surgeons. They lied to me. Is that what this is about? You're angry because you got lied to? Is that why my chicken dinner is drying out in the oven? Hey, they lie to everyone. They lie to the fish, but that doesn't give you any special right to do what you did today. That only makes you special. The only thing that makes you special is that little girl. So he even says the only thing that makes you special is that little girl, but that's the one thing that he doesn't even get allowed to have, is a relationship with his daughter. So if that one thing that makes him special is denied by that wife, you can, again, understand some of his anger to the wife. It doesn't mean that it justifies it. It just means, I think as a man, I always put myself in that shoe, going through like a whole divorce thing myself. And luckily it's been amicable, but I just sit there and think, what would have happened if I was getting denied my children? And it happens to a lot of dads, and it happens to a lot of guys out there. I've known people who have gone through that. And luckily I've been I've been here with my kids the whole time. I luckily had them always with me. Like, they've never been missing, like gone, or other than a couple of days over at mom's house. I've had them full time. I can't imagine what that would have done to me as a man and as a father not having them. You know what I'm saying? Now, again, I shouldn't have a temper, but maybe that's something that, again, you would have to go and have therapy. You know what I'm saying? Like there's ways around it that didn't seem like they were ever searched for in this film to help this guy out at all. He was a guy who never seemed to get a break from anybody. So I sympathize with that. And I think that's the difference of my point, Pat, is I'm not sitting there hailing him up as a hero. I'm just saying that they present to us in the story intentionally a man who never catches a break from anyone. And he failed miserably at his response to that. But at the same time, what kind of world do we live in where somebody doesn't ever get a break? And where people just want to cast him as the villain right away? I think you gotta feel, if you don't feel anything for him in this movie at all at any point, I think then it misses the point of the script of what the writers were trying to do. That's my opinion. And I think again, we talked about how before I think you got on, Pat, we were talking about how we saw this when we were younger and then how we saw it older. And it's a weird, very different response that I had to the film this time than I did when I was 21. I remember like Bo said, I remember the gang scene. I remember like, oh, it's kind of like, that was cool. You know, it was almost a weird sort of totally shut out that he murdered the guy in the shop in the end, who again was probably the worst person in this film.
Yeah. Well, it's funny to hear you guys say that because, and I don't want to cycle all the way back, but that was kind of, I think that was my reaction too. I hadn't seen this movie as younger. I'd seen parts of it or kind of thought I knew what it was. And when I started watching it this time, I'm like, this isn't the movie that I thought it was. Like, it was almost like an echo of what you guys experienced. But isn't that the mark of a good movie, that it makes you think and see things differently depending on what age you are and all of that? So anyways.
I think one of the things about this movie, that if there's any kind of a message that gets across to me, is that we as a system, a society, or whatever you want to call it, we are not very good about recognizing people who are struggling. Like whether it's Prendergast, whether it is D-Fens, like nobody here. The only person that, off the top of my head, the only person I can think of in this movie that recognizes the struggle of another human being in this is Prendergast's partner.
He's the partner. Yep,
that's
exactly.
The only person in this whole movie that recognizes the struggle of someone else, and it's two very different kinds of struggle, similar in some ways, but and of course they're handling that struggle differently. But you know, it's like in the real world. I would say probably 9 times out of 10, if you walk down the street and you pass a homeless person, you are probably going to keep walking on by. You know, we don't, when somebody is struggling, a coworker is struggling or something like that. Like sometimes it's so awkward to know what to say or to know what to do. And I think this movie kind of heightens that, and that gives an extreme picture of, let's make this the worst day someone has ever possibly had in their entire life. And then let's also show how, not to condone their actions, but how does the system and the society we have in place, does that do anything to recognize what this person is going through and try to help in some way, or try to acknowledge it at least in some way? And I think the answer that comes through is, for the vast majority of people, no. We do not do a good job of recognizing those kind of things.
Yeah. And that's why I think I maybe went into hyper defense mode of him, because I felt like we were all very quick to just villainize him right away as bad guy right away. And I'm just like, I did not experience, because I knew where, again, I've seen the movie, so I knew where it was kind of going, and I just maybe had more time to process it and look at it from a script perspective. And I'm always asking, why do they put that line in there? Why did they put that situation there? And this isn't exactly believable. And he's just going to go in from one to the other. And it was kind of like he was getting to vent a lot of things that a lot of people would like to vent. So therefore we can identify with him, but we couldn't identify with his behavior and how he was acting out, because he was obviously taking that, what we were kind of like, hey, we're on your team, is the way I feel like in the beginning, became like, okay, yeah, you're getting a little too crazy here now. I'm not on your team anymore, buddy. Okay, now you did that. Yeah, now you lost me. Oh my God, this isn't going well. And now I'm worried for you. And I don't even think it got to a point where I'm saying I hate him. Although, yes, when he's on the phone and he says the thing about her being scared, he definitely looks a little bit evil at that point.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh crap. When I see the video, Pat, I don't see it as, I don't see it as a bad guy other than a guy with a pretty bad time. He wanted the kid on the horse. He wanted the kid to have fun. He wanted his daughter he bought the horse, and you know what I'm saying? He probably put a lot of thought into that. Like, maybe I'm taking it way too deeper on that. I'm just saying, I don't condone it. I don't agree with it. That's not me. But I see it. I understand the fact that if this guy loves his daughter so much and he bought her that horse and he wants her to have a good time and that kid's not having a good time on that horse, it's like, maybe I see a little of my dad. I'm just throwing it out where I see a little sometimes of that, where there's little elements of my father in that, where it's like, he wanted you to have a good time and you're not having a good time. So it's like, it's almost a hit to his pride. It's a hit to the fact that I've been trying to make my daughter happy at her birthday party and she's not happy. Well, get her on the darn horse and she'll be happy. If you just put her on for 5 seconds, I'm telling you, she's eventually going to like the horse. Like, I don't think I could fault that guy in that sense, other than, yes, I don't agree with it. Yes, it's wrong, but I don't think he had an evil intention. I don't think he had an evil intention. He loved his daughter. And even like I said, the thought of like, hey, well, at least she'll get the insurance. Him with the globe. And when the guy breaks the globe, like that sets him off, because that globe is for his daughter, you know, the snow globe or whatever it was, or the water thing. Like, his intentions were all about literally going home to his daughter's birthday. It was kind of like, my life sucks right now, and the only thing that I really love is my daughter, and I want to go home. And everybody else becomes an enemy to him because they're stopping him from going home to the one thing he loves. And the only thing he feels that when she looks at him, she sees something good. No one else sees anything good in him anymore, but that daughter. And I think that was even like, I think the most like heartbreaking scene is I would have almost rather had the daughter be afraid of him at the end. And she's not. The daughter's like, Daddy.
She's like running up to him. You're like,
running up to him, and who pulls him back? The mom. The mom pulls her, and I get why she does. She's afraid. I would do the same thing probably if I were in her shoes at that point, because he's obviously said some pretty scary things, you know, and it's gotten to that point of no return where it's like, how do you handle that? You know, and then how does she handle it? It's not a good situation for anybody, you know. And then Pendergrass shoots a guy who's got a water gun. You know, how does he live with that? Like, obviously he made the right call because the guy's pulling a gun on him, but that's never easy too, because you just shot a guy with a water gun who was just trying to die. I mean, it's not a happy movie. it's not. That's why I think I said at the beginning, like, I felt like, ugh, after the movie. Because I think it made me think way more about all that this time around than just the kind of enjoying like the story and the plot like early on. Oh, wow. And it just kind of went this way. And as a 21-year-old, you're not processing any of that. You have no idea what it's like with any of that stuff. Relationships, divorce, job, being obsolete as whatever, like all those things. Like, it's like there's so many different stresses in life that you experience later on. And again, I'm pretty good at coping, but I know there's a lot of people who aren't at coping out there, and that's a scary thing. Because those are the people who snap and shoot people up. You know, we see a lot more of that nowadays, and it happens. And how do you prevent that? And I think that you don't prevent it by just saying that those people are just bad people.
All right. Well, it's probably about time for 3 questions. Do we have anything else on this one that we want to talk about? Anything you missed? Any scenes you want to bring up? Anything like that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, the 3 questions will not be quite as deep as the deep thought conversation we just had for the last hour or so, but you know, for a stretch of time, I was like, no, I'm going to let Dennis and Pat go here, and maybe Bo and I can have a conversation in the chat, and just like, Bo, how you doing? How are things going? How's Donna doing? Everybody good?
I was just taking it in, man. It was good stuff.
Yeah.
I do, on a light note, I do have a little pet peeve with the movie. When the police officer had his bike knocked over, right? Yeah. I'm just saying, like, no one, that was pretty funny. No one likes having their bike knocked over. Like, right. And I mean, the guy was ticked.
Did the police officer handle that well?
No, he didn't. And here's the thing too. It kind of like, I know they had to do it for the movie, but honestly, those bikes are designed to do that. And if you notice, it had crash bars on it. It didn't fall that far. And especially if you police officers that ride motorcycles are some of the like most highest trained, like motorcycle, you know what they all do. They learn how to lay those things down on their side if they have to drop them quick and use them for cover. They have all sorts of like good like slow speed maneuvering. And there's a real, like, there's a way to pick up a motorcycle that's fallen over. And that guy was nowhere near it. He was throwing his hands up. He was free. It kind of like was like, I don't know if it was a movie mistake or they just wanted the guy to look flummoxed. And I can't say no one is happy having their bike knocked over, right? Like that's not fun. But there's a real, like, a way to do that. In fact, I've even seen demos where police officers just like, here, put the bike on the side, and you pop it right back up. I mean, it was kind of like, I'm kind of like, okay, that kind of makes that guy kind of look like he doesn't know what he's doing. That's just my little gripe. And I'm sure there's probably several thousand of our listeners that are all motorcyclists that can tell me where I'm wrong. But honestly, like that, I'm just like, okay, I'd get ticked if my bike was knocked over, but that's not the way you react. There's like a whole technique for how you pick those bikes up. And it was a cop bike with like crash bars on it that are designed so that the bike doesn't fall all the way over because you might have to jump off your bike real quick and you don't have time to put the kickstand up. So that was just my little like kind of movie shenanigans. I kind of called on that one scene, but you know, it was kind of funny, and it stinks having your bike knocked over. I will say that.
I think it just adds. I think that whole scene with the bike, like you said, the cop. I think the cop doesn't even. It just again showed that like Pendergrass and the other guy were trying to help, and it was like they were kind of like the guy was kind of rude. And it just again right from the start. I think they have some dialogue with the cars in the traffic jam. He's like yelling at a lady, like, "Hey, you dumb bitch, you cut me out!" Like yelling at her and stuff. Like it was just showing like how people just kind of treat each other like a bunch of like that whole. That's what he's in, and that's what he walked out of. You know, so I think it just sets up that whole kind of. Again, it's a commentary on society. Like, here's what happens when you have a society that doesn't give a person a break, that doesn't treat people with respect, that everybody's boiling over at the edge, and that we treat each other with such disdain and disrespect. And I think that's where when people wonder why people do these things, I think you can sit there and say it's a precursor to kind of answering that question of like, this is why people lose their stuff, because they get pushed too far and they break. And there's people who aren't as strong and good at coping as other people like Pendergrass, you know?
All right. It is time for 3 questions.
He asks each traveler 5 questions. 3 questions. 3 questions.
It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
All right. Question number 1. What is your favorite long journey movie?
Should have been by category, darn it, John. I said this is like the Mazooka clause here.
Oh, no.
I think I had 2. I had a serious and a funny one, so I'm going to use 2. I'm going to go. The first one is going to be Planes, Trains, Automobiles.
Nice.
The second one is going to be, I mean, it popped into my head of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but I'm actually going to go with another more hidden one that nobody probably would have seen. It's just called Rabbit Proof Fence.
Oh, I love that one. Yeah.
Okay, Rabbit Proof Fence, because I think of a long journey, and for these kids, if anybody doesn't know what it's about these Aboriginal children who used to get like basically kidnapped from the government or by the government to be like re-educated and everything else, and all this stuff from their parents. And they use this rabbit proof fence to try to find their way back to their homes. So there's this long journey about trying to avoid being caught and stuff. The English guy, what's his name? He's married to
Kenneth Branagh.
Kenneth Branagh's in it. Yeah. He's like one of the kind of the, I guess, quote unquote bad guys. And it's Peter Gabriel soundtrack, which I also love too. Yeah. But yeah, that I'm going to go with that one as the drama one.
That's a good one.
Although Lord of the Rings would have been kind of the first thing that popped into my head, like a long journey, I think.
Okay.
But Planes, Trains.
Okay.
One of you is going to say the other close one. I was going to say it's also a comedy, I'm sure.
Mine was kind of quick and easy. I mean, I had several different options I was going to pick from, but I'm going to go with "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou."
There you go.
Yeah,
Good choice. Good choice.
I was thinking silly. I was thinking Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey.
I brought that one up to the kids. I was like, "Have you guys ever even seen that before?" They're like, "No." I said, "Yeah, it's 2 dogs and a cat, and Michael J. Fox plays one of the dogs." And Nora thought For some reason, she didn't think that I meant that it was like actual dogs and cats. She thought that it was like Michael J. Fox on all fours, like in a dog
that's
costume.
awesome. I mean,
and I was like, all right, well, now I want to see that movie.
Right?
But so now I know at some point we're going to have to watch that because they've never seen it.
There you go. Well, and then, of course, there's Pat's favorite. The Never-Ending Story.
Never-Ending Story. Yeah, that was... But did he really go anywhere? Because did it happen at all?
Right.
I don't know.
But
I don't know. And
the movie portrays a journey.
The movie portrays a journey. You're right. You're right. Never-Ending Story is a good one.
Masters of the Universe was a good journey.
It was good journey.
Good journey.
Dennis, I'm glad you mentioned Lord of the Rings. That one's a good one. I don't know if this is a technicality at all, but I'll tell you, growing up, one of my favorite books was The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. And
very nice.
I remember rereading and rereading The Voyage of the Dawn Treader ad nauseum. So I'd have to say Voyage of the Dawn Treader. And the only other one that I can think of, and I know Mizuka's going to love this because it was referenced a couple of weeks ago, is Master and Commander, Far Side of the World. That one is, and now I'm thinking like one of my all-time favorite movies, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
I think all of mine seem to have a nautical theme. So anyways, I'm just going to go get my drum and sit on the back of the boat.
There you go.
But no, I think, I think those would be the ones that I would think of.
Nice. All right. Question number 2. If you could only eat at one fast food place for the rest of your life, which one would you choose? My kids split the difference between Culver's and Portillo's. Mine is, I had to get super specific. There is my favorite place in the city to go to anytime I'm in the city. And if one of these is nearby, they actually just changed their name. They used to be called Bombay Wraps. Now they're called Bombay Eats. And it is like it's a fast food Indian wrap place. Very, very good.
This was tough. And I could see where Portillo's would be an option.
Mm-hmm.
This is hard.
I kind of like the idea of Culver's. It just gives you some options because they have fish, they have chicken, they have burgers.
It's true.
And they have good ice cream.
It's true.
So I think.
And cheese curds.
Oh, yeah. See, there it is right there.
Yeah, there
done. Culver's. Yeah.
Oh, wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I just completely messed up. Yeah, the Bombay Wraps place, but then, oh, man, I forgot about Whataburger. No, I got to change my answer. Sorry, I got to change my answer. Torchy's Tacos. Torchy's Tacos. Our Oklahoma friends will know about that. Anybody in Texas that's listening, they'll know about that. I got to go Torchy's Tacos. All right, I'm done now. I'm planning a trip to Indianapolis now because that's where the closest Torchy's is, but you guys talk amongst yourselves. I'm just gonna plan how I'm gonna get there tonight.
You're gonna plan it out.
Yeah.
All right. So it depends on where I'm living. So if I had a choice, I would say Plant Power Fast Food. It's in California, Ocean Beach. It has phenomenal plant-based shakes, burgers, wraps. It's freaking delicious, and it's a fast food place. It's really good. Over here, I would go with. Does I didn't know if Qdoba counts as a fast food place or not.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I would go with Qdoba probably. If I were to go with your more traditional fast food place, I would actually go with a place called Bona Beef. There's one in Lakemore and there's one in Oklahoma that I grew up with.
Yeah.
And they have a really good vegan beef. Like it's
they do.
Like I will prefer that over. Like I used to love old beef sandwiches back when I did meat and stuff and everything before. They have a plant-based beef one that doesn't taste like weird fake stuff. I mean, it is. If you gave me a choice between blind taste test between the beef and that one, I would probably choose the other one, the one that's plant-based. Okay. It's phenomenal. The seasoning on it is great. It's really good. So I'd go Bona Beef if we're going to go more traditional. Good fries too.
All right.
Yeah. Bona Beef is a pretty awesome. Yes.
I didn't know they had one out Lakemore till later. I was like, whoa. And then it's like, I'll drive out there.
Yeah, that's like it's like 5 minutes from my house. Which
by the old, I discovered it going to the Woodman's Market. That's there. And then when I went, whoa, that's right next door. Whoa, I don't have to drive 45 minutes to my mom's to go to Get the one that's out in, because there's two of them out by like where my mom lives. One in Oak Park, I think, and one in Hillside or something. So
the one out in Lakemore also during the summer has like an Italian ice cream.
Yes, I see it closed down out there. I'm going to try that because I just discovered that this past like fall. So yeah, it looks really good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, Bona's really good.
Yeah, because Bona means good, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
I think that's the slogan. I don't know. Maybe not.
All right, Pat? Did we give you enough time to think about you?
Yeah. Does Jason's Deli count as fast food?
Sure.
Because if Jason's okay, because then I'm taking Jason's Deli because
well, you're a salad bar guy.
I was going to say, man, that salad bar, I could live on that thing.
Oh yeah,
I could live on that thing. Jason's Deli used to be the after church go to brunch place because I think we met you guys there one time.
Yeah, we saw you there
when the families and everything. And I want to say, like, there was a time we were going there every Sunday for a couple of years. So I ordered off the menu once.
Okay.
Of the 100 times I've been to that restaurant, I ordered off the menu once. Every other time was the salad bar. Yeah. And I always walked in going, maybe I'll order off the menu. Then I look at the salad bar and I'm just like, nope, just going to do salad bar. So, but my gosh, yeah, you guys present some really good, pretty incredible options.
The salad bar was the menu.
The salad bar was the menu. I mean, it was great.
The salad bar is the Brute Squad.
That's right. But yeah, and it's funny because it seems like we're in a thing now where they all kind of do what the Chipotle Qdoba, where you go down the line and pick. Mm-hmm. You know, we have that Bop place. Yep. There's a couple of places that do that with like Mediterranean food. So, man, if they ever did like I guess Roadie's kind of okay. Now I'm hungry. Now I'm just gonna go all the places. But I'd have to say Jason's Deli and just the salad bar from Jason's Deli.
That's a good choice. I will say, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that it is quality food, but in terms of fast food that we really enjoyed, if any of them were still open, I would also say Fazoli's. That was the Italian place we used to stop by. Actually, when we were in college, we'd go there almost every Sunday because it was the affordable Italian place.
Mm-hmm.
When you're on a college budget.
Yes.
All right, question number 3. And Pat, if you want to, you can talk about the people that were at your concert that were driving you nuts. Question number 3, what makes you angry?
People.
Stupid.
All people. Every single person in the world makes me angry. But you see, but you see, Dennis, before we cycle back to the next 5 hours, okay, here's what I do. I'm going to go buy a cottage in the middle of nowhere by the ocean with a trail. And then I can run down the trail. And when I see people, I can be nice and pass out goodness. And when I don't have any more goodness to pass out, I can just go be by myself.
So you're going to go buy a cottage. Where's this cottage, Pat?
It's in the middle of nowhere, Dennis. You don't need to know.
It's in the middle of nowhere. So you got to get
there. You don't need to know.
You hop on your motorcycle and you hit traffic. And the traffic's going nowhere. See, you can't get to that cottage. So then you go and you start walking across, and all of a sudden some gang members start messing with you, Pat.
All right.
And then you have to walk all the way around this golf course that could have been a park for children. That could have been.
Dennis, I don't want to step all over your virtue signaling, but we're in California. Okay, California has permissible motorcycle laws where you can split lanes and shoulder ride. I'm on a motorcycle. I don't need to be in traffic. You see, that's
the benefit. You didn't say you were in California.
The movie was set in California, wasn't it?
But you said, I think, a place local Midwest here somewhere, I think.
No, it's not local. And it's not Midwest, my friend. But it's going to be secret. But here's the thing, Dennis. I'm going to sell all my vehicles and I'm going to walk. I'm just going to walk. It might take me years to get there.
Be careful where you walk.
That's okay. Don't
walk on the golf course.
Don't walk honestly, across any graffiti.
And I'll just keep walking. That's okay. That's
God
okay.
forbid you need to make a phone call.
Yeah, I know. I'm just going to walk. That's all. I'm going to go and be away from everything. What really makes me mad, like, honestly, I'm kind of on a quest to not get mad anymore. So I'm just saying, I'm not going to say all people. Talking in a concert does kind of blip the throttle a little bit, gets me a race car running in the red. But then at least I think to myself, well, I'm not that guy. At least I'm not that guy. And then I take pride in that.
Well, my answer is that's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry. Mine would be similar to yours, Pat. Mine would be people who talk or use their phone or basically act like morons in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially nowadays, the one that's been driving me nuts lately, and I wouldn't say it gets me angry, it just gets me flabbergasted, is how every single movie theater, at least around by us, every single movie theater now, your seats are assigned. Like, you know where you're going to sit because you bought the ticket for that seat. And yet every movie I've gone to lately is somebody sits in the wrong seat. And then there's this whole commotion because they get there late, and then somebody's got to move, and somebody's arguing with, well, no, I think it's my seat. No, here's your seat. This is like, folks, the rows are clearly marked with letters and numbers. I know reading can sometimes be difficult when it's just letters and numbers, but it's really not.
Well, there's no pictures.
Yeah, no, it's really not that difficult. In fact, if you buy the tickets online, or I think even when you buy them at the box office, I think usually they show you a picture of the theater and show you where your seats are on the little picture.
That's true.
So there's not a whole lot of reason why. Yeah. The only other thing that made me angry recently was when I went to the movie. I went to see Cocaine Bear with my sister at the Alamo Draft House. Their popcorn machine was broken. And that was my only
turn around, go home.
That was the only bad thing about the whole thing was I was like, well, I've come to see a movie, and you're telling me
there will be popcorn.
Here was my response. I found out the popcorn machine was broken, and I said,
That's extraordinary. What would you like to do next?
I'd like you to fix the popcorn machine.
Yes, now.
Or run across the street to a Walgreens and buy popcorn and maybe just warm it up somehow for me and bring it in here. But a movie with no popcorn,
that's sacrilegious or something.
Makes me angry, and you wouldn't like to see me when I'm angry. So, yeah, people talking when they shouldn't. In movies.
Repeating the same thing twice because everyone in the room was being obnoxious and loud, and so 10 people didn't hear me. Not a fan.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
That's true. Like giving a presentation or a class or something like that.
Oh, just in general, talking with a couple of people, and then someone walks in at the back end, and they're like, "Oh, what was that? I missed it." Well, you know what? You missed it. You missed it.
Not too bad for you.
Whoops.
Should have been here earlier.
Yeah. Well, they were there. They were just having their own conversation because they didn't think what I was saying was important. And then all of a sudden, I said a key word, and they're like, "Oh, what now?" I now have to stop and repeat myself for you. Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Yeah. So wait, Bo, what did you say what made you angry? Well, it'd be great if we had a YouTube channel.
It would be. It would be.
I don't have to visually edit any of that right now.
I struggle. You know what? I struggle with movies that kill off the main characters in their sequels and the credits. That kind of gets me a little riled up. I'm just saying.
Pat, you know what I hate? I hate that. I really hate that sometimes, even when you win, you lose. I mean, it's rough. I hate it, but it's life. It's realistic.
That's the rules you got to play by.
Yeah.
That's the rules that we got to play by.
You know what I hate? I hate movies about surfing.
That's right. That's right. You hate movies about surfing.
I hate Point Break.
Hey, Utah, give me two.
Give me two.
The ending of Never Ending Story.
Well, just explain it to me, and I don't know if I hate it or not. Just tell me what happened. Did they get the bullies? Because if you got the bullies, I'm good with it. But if you didn't get the bullies, I'm out.
He doesn't hate it. He's just curious.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm not judging.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm the bad guy?
I am the villain of the story.
I am the
Dennis. Did we give yours?
No, so I'm going to say my immediate one right now is what makes me angry when I drop something.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Bending over. Yeah.
People don't know I had microdiscectomy, so I had surgery on my L4, L5 disc vertebrae. So I can't bend, twist, or do anything like that. And I swear to God, I'm dropping more. I am dropping stupid stuff that I've never dropped before in my life. I had to have my son buzz me up because I was outside the place about to put my key in the door to go in. All of a sudden, I dropped the keys, and I'm like, you know what? I mean, I could try to do a lunge and keep my back up straight and get down and reach and grab the keys. And I'm like, you know what? And then I'm calling him, and then he's not answering right away. So then you're just like sitting out and it's cold, and you got groceries in your hand, like the bag, not a lot, but one bag because I can't hold more than whatever 10 pounds or something like that now too. So all those things are just making me angry. Yeah. So I've dropped more stuff now, stupid stuff. You know, luckily I have this went and bought one of these grabber things.
Oh, you've got the old people grabber.
But I didn't have it with me outside, so it didn't help. And then when you try to grab it, you get something almost up to hand it to yourself, and it falls again.
Boom. Yep.
And it's just one of those things where. So I'm going to say right now, me dropping anything in general with people, I'm going to go. I don't know. I was trying to decide which category. I think hypocrisy really makes me angry, but probably not. I think I'm so used to hypocrisy now that it doesn't make me as angry. I guess I'm going to come down to sort of the theme of the movie is when people just simply have situations where they just choose not to be nice to somebody that they can very easily without anything really. And we're not talking about taking the shirt off your back and giving it to somebody. I'm talking about simply treating somebody and being nice to somebody. And you just kind of are just either rude or just have an attitude or like that does make me angry. So I will say that maybe that's why I was so, I guess maybe if you want to call passionate about the movie.
I was going to say triggered.
Because I think that was bothering me throughout the movie. I'll be honest. I was sitting there looking at it, like, why am I defending him so much? And I'm not really defending him or his actions. I'm just so angry at the other people throughout the film that they wrote in there that just never threw him a bone, never were simply kind.
Yeah, I think Kirk Douglas.
Is it that hard to be kind? Is it that hard to be kind?
I think Kirk Douglas summed it up. Was it Kirk Douglas that said he's the victim and the villain simultaneously?
Yeah,
I think that's the.
Yeah.
All the same, Dennis, I'm not going to turn my back on you for the next foreseeable future.
Wow.
I love you, Pat.
I'm just kidding. And if you ever drop the keys, you just give me a phone call. And I'll come shooting right over. I might drive past your house a couple of times just because I get lost in here. But
so, Dennis, that procedure you had, you're not having kids anymore?
What?
What was the name of the procedure you had again?
Microdiscectomy.
Yeah, so you're not having kids anymore.
Sounds a little dangerous, doesn't it?
Yeah. That would sound embarrassing and dangerously if it was a microdiscectomy.
I was going to say you're a brave man for actually going on the air and saying, "Hey, it was micro."
Did I say a microdiscectomy? I said I meant a major discectomy.
He's mad.
An extra large discectomy.
It's the
biggest one I ever saw.
It's the macro one. Yeah.
Big mistake. Big, huge.
It's a disectomy like nobody else. The greatest disectomy ever.
It took every doctor at the hospital to make it happen. I hear they had him working in shifts. Well,
on that note,
yikes.
That is going to do it for this episode of the 30-something movie podcast. We are at 30podcast.com, at 30podcast on the different social media stuff. We have got coming up for the rest of this month. This month is our One Bad Day theme. And our movies this month have been Cliffhanger, Groundhog Day, True Romance, Falling Down was this week, and then next week we're going to finish it off with The Fugitive. What I'm going to want from you guys, from each and every one of you, is a hard target search of every was a gas station, residence, warehouse, farmhouse, hen house, outhouse, doghouse in the area, so that we can talk about The Fugitive. Our Patreons. What's that?
Just be careful. Just be careful with The Fugitive. I mean, realistically, Tommy Lee Jones didn't care in there.
I don't.
So Tommy Lee Jones technically is the villain in that movie. So let's just be careful with Dennis. We don't want to get him all fired up again.
Okay. All right.
I don't think I got fired up.
I feel like, the one thing for Richard Kimball, though, is even when he wins,
he loses.
He loses. Yeah. Yeah.
I think I saw the Leviathan sitting on his library shelf. So I'm sure it all,
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that's all how.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no, Dennis, of course, you didn't get riled up. Everything is good. You just stay calm.
Everything is okay.
Put back the tape.
We're here to help you.
It's very 1980.
We are empathizing with you, dude. We are empathizing with you, dude.
Well, before everybody gets all touchy-feely about things, our Patreon episodes this month were Octopussy. The short ones are Superman 3 and Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Next month, April, is Location, Location, Location. Our regular episodes are, all of them have a location in the title: Sleepless in Seattle, Bronx Tale, Gettysburg, and Philadelphia. Our Patreons are Razzies of 1993, which would include Indecent Proposal, Body of Evidence, Cliffhanger, Last Action Hero, and Sliver. And then our Patreon short, Sleepaway Camp from 83 and Evil Dead Rise from 2023. So we got all kinds of good stuff going on over the course of the next month or so. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
All right,
Great seeing
everybody,
you guys.
be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies. We'll see you back here next time.